I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, September 25th, 2020, the WNW 450. Buzzwords of the week, violence and coming voter fraud. And the violence is really, you could peg this to a lot of people. Is it George Soros who's funding these prosecutors who won't prosecute, who's also funding Antifa, Black Lives Matter, corporate America's funding Black Lives Matter. Incidentally, they took down their What We're About or What We Stand For page, where they talk about removing daddy from the house and destroying the traditional family. Black Lives Matter started by Marxists. This is what they admit to. They are, quote, one of the founders said, "We are trained Marxists." This is all about overthrowing America and changing America and not about race. But, here we have the Daily Beast, the ultra left-leaning liberal Daily Beast that lies to you about that Breonna Taylor was some sort of a race-induced shooting. Violence is inevitable. Cops shot after protest. You mean riots erupt in Louisville. My take on this, violence is inevitable because the legacy media, people like NBC, ABC, the Daily Beast, the New York Times, all these people, CBS, Bloomberg, violence is inevitable because the legacy media is lying to usher in communism, Marxism, and propaganda of the DNC platform. And the propaganda of the DNC platform is simply, that America is racist, and we have, quote, white privilege, unquote, and, critical race theory is a real thing, although it's illogical, irrational, ridiculous, unscientific, hateful, racist propaganda to cower people and make them, say, oh, yeah, I guess we are racist, and, bring in Marxism. Well, we have a solution for all this racism: Marxism. Communism, godless black hole of nothingness communism. And if you look at the Breonna Taylor incident, it's awful. They had a warrant. It was not a no-knock warrant. At least the cops did knock and announced who they were. The boyfriend admits he shot through the door. Now, he says, it's because I thought somebody was trying to break in. So somebody knocks on your door and you take your gun and shoot through the door? Or maybe if somebody knocks on your door and says, "Louisville police, open up," maybe then you shoot through your door. He shot a cop. I want to know why Breonna's boyfriend hasn't been charged with shooting a cop. You shot through a door. And the cops were on the other side, and they shot back, and it's a tragedy that Breonna Taylor was killed. That is no doubt, but it was not induced by hateful racism, is what the mainstream media and the legacy media and people like the Daily Beast want you to know. Violence is just inevitable. Because the cops shot back after somebody shot through a door when they were exercising a legitimate legal warrant. And they did announce themselves, and we've been lied to about that by the mainstream media because that fits the lies fit their narrative. The truth and the facts don't. Absolutely unbelievable. And then we have, there's just, in North Carolina, they can mail in your ballots, 8, 9, 10 days afterwards. They can have ballot harvesting. They're making what's illegal and what's awful election fraud legal. This is why Donald Trump wants somebody, the 9th person on the Supreme Court, and he is going to get it before Election Day. The Democrats can't stop it. They can huff, they can puff, and they can try to attempt to blow the House down, but they can't. They can't stop it. Wisconsin authorities, and this is just many voter fraud and attempts to sway and change the election because they can't do it with the hearts and minds of people because all their policies are awful. It's going to cost you more money. It's going to be less freedom. Wisconsin authorities investigate absentee ballots found in ditch as FBI probes discarded pro-Trump ballots in Pennsylvania. Wisconsin is investigating how the 3 trays of mail, which included absentee ballots, ended up in a ditch. Also, they found discarded military ballots from Trump voters. Now, this is what we've got 40 days out from the election. It's unbelievable. Meanwhile, the mainstream media, which ignores everything that's damaging to Joe Biden. This is the biggest scam in history. This is the weekend at Biden's. This guy can't even function, and yet the mainstream press is covering it up. Can you imagine this? Could you imagine if Trump was, ending his day after a 9:30 appointment and go, okay, I'm done, instead of what he is doing, holding all these rallies around the country? I mean, the most people I've seen show up for a Biden event is 3 dozen, and 2 of them were photographers. I kid you not. It was in his hometown in Pennsylvania a few weeks ago. So can you imagine this kind of a story breaking out about one of the Trump children, Eric or Don Jr.? Can you imagine a story like, top Republicans urge FBI DOJ to investigate Hunter Biden's $3.5 million Moscow payday? Stop right there. And what about him working for Burisma and making millions of dollars on that? And what about the $1.5 billion payday? He flies over to China on Air Force Two and gets a $1.5 billion payday. That's, basically takes a parts company that can be also dual use and take it over to China. I mean, this is outrageous. On top of it, Hunter Biden also linked to prostitution or human trafficking ring, and this is all in a new Senate report. Donald Trump tweet. Russian billionaire wired Hunter Biden $3.5 million, this on top of all the other money he received while Joe was VP, crooked as can be, but fake mainstream media wants it just to go away. And that's really outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. They want to say that the protests are mostly peaceful, they're mostly violent. And listen, if you are peaceful and you're out in protest where violence turns out, that's like you riding in a car where there's some guys going to rob a bank and you're in the car with them and you're mostly a peaceful bank robber, and they go in and rob the bank and you stand at the door and go, wow, they're robbing the bank. This is a violent bank robbery. Well, I'm a peaceful bank robber. Yeah, you're a bank robber. If you're at these protests, quote unquote, you are a rioter. You're participating in it by you being there. Because if you didn't want to participate in it, you would leave and say, wow, it's too hot for me, I'm gone. I mean, Trump is supposed to have a debate with Biden. I don't know how he's going to pull this off. This is Tuesday the 29th. Biden is supposed to debate Donald Trump, with his letter opener, and Trump's going to bring his broadsword. I don't see how he's going to do it. I mean, maybe they, as Trump says, can give him a shot in the ass. That's what he says, and he can bring him back. But he's going to be able to run and gun with Donald Trump, and Trump's going to go off script. He's going to let the moderators and Chris Wallace completely, manage this. Ain't going to work. Trump's president of the United States, not somebody who wants to be president. I don't know how this is going to work. I still don't think they can do it. I still think he's going to stub his toe or have a car wreck or come down with COVID. I don't know, come down with the flu. I don't know. But if he does, I mean, I think that's going to be the most watched debate and one of the most sad debates in history. I mean, obviously, Biden, lots of reports and evidence, he has to have an earpiece and he has to answer questions on a teleprompter. He can't even answer questions, puffball questions, because the media won't ask him any hard questions. He can't even answer puffball questions from the media. Can you imagine if Donald Trump was doing that? Could you imagine if Donald Trump's family was extorting money from China and Ukraine and other places? Could you imagine that? I've told you about this. There's a kickback scheme, going on in Ukraine. And I think the whole State Department under past administrations, and this includes Republicans, kickback schemes. Now you have John Durham, investigating the Clinton Foundation. I mean, now I'm finally getting around to that. Unbelievable. Somebody on his team quit. I mean, he hasn't come up with anything yet, but I can't imagine he's going to let all these people go. I can't imagine the person that quit, which was a anti-Trumper on his team, was quitting because, they're going to let everybody go. Now he's investigating the Hillary Clinton and the fraudulent foundation, which I've been telling you, she had a private server to hide the fact she was taking treasonous donations through a global charity fraud. You can sum it up just like that. And on top of it, I told you about this phony Iran deal, where a top, and I'm not going to hold up all the stuff here, but a top Iranian advisor was threatening on his global Twitter account that he would expose all the people who took bribes. It was a total scam. We gave them billions of dollars and 150 billion. Let them use the SWIFT system, and I think who knows how much of the Iranians actually got of their 150 billion that was being held. 75 billion. I don't know. I mean, what a scam! Can you imagine what the Arabs thought of that? You have the Hatfields and McCoys, and then you have the Sunni Arabs, which is most of the Arab world, the Arab League, and then you have the Shia Arabs, which is pretty much Iran, Persians, that. And that the Sunni Arabs are 90% of the Arab world, roughly. Iran, 10%. Could you imagine what the rest of the 90% of the Arab world was thinking when they cut this crazy deal that was supposed to, there was a no signature deal. That's a fact. Period. The end. And they cut this no signature deal, which should have been a treaty in the Senate. They couldn't get it through the Senate. Nobody wanted to bite down on that and allow all the fraud. Could you imagine the rest of the world watching this fraud fest with Iran's nuclear program going on where we never investigated, never visited a single military site because Iran said, we'll do the deal, but you're not coming to our military sites. I got to hand it to Iran. They told you exactly what the deal was, which was supposed to stop their nuclear proliferation and them stopping to getting a nuclear device, which did nothing. Everybody just cashed in. And then you wonder, how could the president get this peace deal going? Well, he killed the Iran deal, and the Sunni Arabs were like, you're kidding. We hated that deal. We hate Iran worse than we hate Israel. And then we have now news breaking out with this historic peace deal. He got UAE and Bahrain to sign a deal. Now, granted, there are military bases there, but he's going to get other people to come in. And now all of a sudden, what you have is isolation, not war. You're isolating Iran. Nobody saw this coming. I didn't. Third Arab nation to reach a peace agreement with Israel in the next 2 days. This is the U.S. invoice. This is speculation. Oman, Morocco, or Sudan will be the next Arab League nation to sign a normalization agreement with Israel. U.S. UN Ambassador Kelly Craft. What is important is that we focus on the agreements and do not allow Iranian regime to exploit the good intentions of Bahrain, the Emirates, or Israel. Not war with Iran. Oh, didn't see that coming. But isolation. Not war with Iran. And how can he pull this deal off? Well, the Arabs had to say, listen, you got to show us what. Wow, you stopped the Iran deal? Holy cow. You're pulling troops out of Syria. You're going to pull out of Afghanistan. Okay. And we're going to isolate Iran because the Sunni Arabs are scared to death of Iran and their nuclear ambitions. That's a fact. I wonder if this peace deal is the peace deal talked about in Revelation. If it is, then Donald Trump is going to need a second term to pull off the rest of the peace deal because he's doing it country by country. That peace deal is not completely there yet. I mean, Saudi Arabia has to sign on. A lot of people have to sign on. But not completely there yet. So I wonder if this is the peace deal talked about in Revelations, and the Democrats they're interested in more war. They're not interested in a peace deal. Evidently, the peace deal is going to continue. So this is why Donald Trump's being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, Bo Pony said the week in September, what was it, September 14th to 18th, there'd be some big things happening. He signed a lot of people thought it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, which was a big deal. But also the peace treaty signed with Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. It's a big deal. That's a big deal. So, and now there's going to be another Arab country roll on and isolates Iran. That's an unbelievable, wickedly smart play. And not have war. Just isolate them. This is a big deal, and I'm glad because, we had New York sign a bill that said that, babies could be born aborted in the ninth, up to the last minute. And of course, I told you about the Center for Medical Progress, which was in some cases, and this is what Planned Parenthood executives admitted to on camera under sworn deposition. In some cases, live babies had their organs removed. Now, could you imagine? I could imagine just being a reporter and have somebody call me up and say, Greg, do you know there are certain veterinarians around the country that are harvesting the organs of live puppies? We've got to stop it. And it would stop. But harvesting the organs of live babies, not a story. So when Donald Trump came up with this, he proposes a born alive executive order. Fines and jail time for allowing babies to die. Got to protect them. President Donald Trump announced Wednesday of this week he will sign a born alive executive order which will require doctors to provide care to all babies born alive in an appeal to his anti-abortion voters. Now, this is the Left News and Observer. An appeal to his anti-abortion, an appeal. Oh, how about an appeal to decency? Killing a baby outside the womb to harvest their organs, that's okay? You sick weasels in the mainstream press. This is News and Observer's little he doesn't know that. That's an editorial comment, which is not reporting, of course, in an appeal to anti-abortion voters. And then on that, total BS by the baby killers. Otherwise, why would they allow full-term abortions as in New York? Baby killer Cooper here in North Carolina, and you cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat. I'm sorry. They do not have a part of their platform that says pro-life. You have to be pro-abortion. Baby killer Cooper vetoed a bill that would protect babies that made it through an abortion. And apparently, many of them do make it through an abortion, which is how they can hold on to their organs until they, at the precise moment, they can harvest them, and evidently, in some cases, while the babies are alive. You can't be a Democrat and vote. You can't be a Christian and vote Democrat. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't square that up in front of Jesus. So you voted for the people that killed my little ones and cut their organs out of their bodies while they were alive. What are you going to say to that? Oh, well, I thought it was a good idea. Well, it wasn't really a life. They weren't named. I say this, and this is, you know me, I source everything. This is happening. This is why baby killer Cooper and governors like him, like Cuomo, are not going to protect babies if they make it through an abortion, so they can harvest the organs. And if the babies are alive, at least it's not a puppy. So bravo to you, President Donald Trump. Here's one for you that's going to stir up some stuff and not talked about a lot in the alternate press or even obviously not in the mainstream press. All passengers on Epstein's flight logs to be named, sparking panic among rich pals. The Attorney General for the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Epstein had a home, has demanded logs for his 4 helicopters and 3 planes from 1998 until his suicide last year. Just being on the flight wouldn't convict you. But man, you'd look bad. They called it Pedophile Island. They called the plane that flew down the Lolita Express. There's tons of reports about underage girls, children, sex with underage girls, people down there in the island engaging in that sort of stuff. Listen, it's what's reported. Could you imagine your name? Like maybe Justice John Roberts being on that flight? And all kinds of other people? They'd have some embarrassing explaining to do, would they not? It couldn't come any sooner for me. I want to talk about the economy. Listen, folks, I think Trump's fantastic. I think he's the right guy to be in this job because he's not going to cut up America if he can at all help it. And I don't think that's his goal. I think he's got nukes. I told you this before. Hillary would have sold Alaska and sold Hawaii, except for one island for Obama. They would have sold off pieces of America. They don't care about America. The evil that is going on with what's in America, the cheating, the the lawlessness, the lack of care for your fellow man, the mayors in these cities that allow businesses and half of them black businesses to be burned to the ground. Black Lives Matter. No, they don't. No, they don't. All that matters to Black Lives Matters is a change of government, a Marxist revolution, period, the end. Because if you look at all the killings in Chicago, in Rochester, and little girls in Ferguson while they're reading their homework, a year, 2 years ago, shot in the head by another black guy. The black-on-black crime is unbelievable. I mean, one guy was saying that in all of 50 years of the KKK, more people are killed by other black people in 6 months right now. That more people are killed than all the murders and hangings of the KKK of 50 years. More people are killed by other blacks right now. The black-on-black crime is unbelievable. Nobody talks about it. The babies born out of wedlock. Nobody talks about that. No, because, black lives don't matter. People like Candace Owen and Burgess Owen and Larry Elder and Dr. Ben Carson and all those people which that mainstream media hates because, they're smart black people who actually care about black people. And actually all people. They don't get hurt, or they try to thump them down. So, the economy, listen, with all this money floating in the economy, it's a stunning amount of money, and it should be much worse. I mean, we're talking Great Depression era numbers. Yet we don't see it. And because all this money, all this printed money. And I know we have people like Martin Armstrong, brilliant guy. And he says, the Fed's announcing they're going to do $120 billion a month. And everybody yawned, $120 billion a month. $1.2 billion in 10 months. Excuse me, $1.2 trillion in 10 months. Anyway. But then we have all this capital destruction, all these restaurants, all these businesses going out of business or so much less than they did before because they only have 25% occupancy or 50% occupancy, all that stuff, which is why we should open back up the country. And here we have U.S. workers file 870,000 jobless claims. That's coronavirus total near 62 million people that's done this, that's filed for new claims. Some of these people have gone back to work, but it's unbelievable. It's a number equivalent to more than 38% of the nation's workforce. Folks, how in the world are you going to be selling cars and houses and goods and services and flat screen TVs and everybody living the high life if 38% of the people have filed for unemployment? Don't let off. Prepare yourself. I mean, put yourself in the strongest position possible. Things aren't going well at all. But listen, this is because of this hoax, that we've been sold by this coronavirus. At the very least, overreaction, and I think it's fraudulent. It's a hoax based on the numbers from the CDC. And here's what CDC publishes new survival rates for COVID. The mainstream media goes silent. And look at this, folks. 0 to 19 years of age, you have a 99.997% of survival. Here, 20 to 49, you have a 99.98% of survival. 50 to 69, you have a 99.5% of survival. And 70 plus has a 94.6% of survival. And we locked down the country for this? And what about all the doctors that have been complaining, doctors overseas, doctors complaining recently about how you've wrecked the healthcare system and there are all kinds of other things and divorces and procedures that didn't happen and mental health and suicides. And then you had doctors over here talking about hydroxychloroquine and why they made it out to be like some tinfoil hat thing. And there was much science on both sides of the Atlantic and many doctors saying hydroxychloroquine and zinc and a Z-Pak work in early stages. And it's something like 90-something%. And one of the doctors were out, remember this? Nobody needed to die. But yeah, they did. The globalists are evil. And so are the Democrats. And then if you look at, what's his name? Publisher of the Trends Journal, Gerald Celente on. He says, he's up in New York. And he says, they say it's 5 or 6,000 people that died in nursing homes because of, Governor Cuomo's stupid decisions. But they didn't release the real numbers. It's 25 to 30,000. You watch, it's going to be closer to that. 25 to 30,000 people died because of idiot Governor Cuomo's policies in sending people into nursing homes to infect everybody there when he had a hospital ship. He had the Javits Center. He had basically thousands of beds he could have used and didn't use them. This is what the curve looks like when you just put in, here's New Jersey and New York, okay? You take out New Jersey and New York, and this is what we got. There's a second wave, and then the boom, right? That's unbelievable. I mean, that's what the Nazis did. If you were mentally retarded, you ended up dead. If you were sick, dead. If you were a Jew, they numbered you to keep track, dead. I mean, if you were crippled, you ended up dead. We don't want to take care of you. Old, dead. That's what Nazis did. The National Socialist German Workers' Party. Nazis. As far as I'm concerned, the Democrat Party is communist, Marxist, Nazi. I pick your pick. All three. I don't know. But they're godless. They believe in the black hole of nothingness. Here's the cartoon that I put up. And it would be funnier, if it wasn't so true. Hey, throw that in. Hydroxychloroquine and zinc and a Z-Pack. Why not? Oh, well, it's not November 4th yet. They let people die for their political ambitions. This is the evil we're talking about here. Most people can't fathom that, but yet that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. The evil. I talked to you about Ephesians 6:12, but really Ephesians, I backed up and I looked at it. And also there's a small correction I wanted to put in there. And I wanted to read this to you because we're talking about evil. You cannot separate the devil, Christ, good and evil from this story. It's all of it. This is evil. These people are possessed. There's a picture of a guy with a devil mask on. There's a guy that had his nose cut off and horns attached to his head because he wants to be the devil. We have a lady, a report at her son's high school football game in the middle of a bench and we're getting tased and cuffed because she didn't have a mask on. You have people who are singing a church song who got arrested. This just happened this week. Because they didn't have a mask on. What a hoax. Ephesians, start with 6:10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. He's saying, hey man, God's strong. Believe in God. Instead of saying Jesus loves you, I started thinking, maybe you should say Jesus is real. And he loves you. God's real. Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies on the 18th. The Feast of the Trumpets on Rosh Hashanah. God's real. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. This is King James Version. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against the spiritual wickedness in high places. I used a different version that said heavenly. No. Guy pointed out, I said, it's high places. High places here on this planet, not in heavenly places. Okay, this is King James Version. Now, why would God want you to know that be strong in the Lord and his power is might? Because so he wants you to stick your head inside of a guillotine? No. He's telling you to put on the armor of God. Why? So you can be pounded and pelted and stoned and everything else? No, so you can be protected. That you hold on to what's real, and what's real is Jesus Christ. He's real. It's the best documented supernatural event in history, Jesus Christ. Of course, the ancient alien people never want to talk about that. Without question, it's the best documented. I mean, look at Lee Strobel's book, The Case for Christ. He was an atheist when he started writing the book to prove his wife wrong, that she was a crazy Christian. At the end of the book, he had a best-selling book, and he became a Christian. It's the best documented supernatural event in history. That's science, folks. And that's why God tells you to put on the whole armor of God. Sometimes I sin and I say to myself, I took my helmet off. I did something I should have done. And That's why he tells you, so you could protect yourself against the devil. This story is very much about God, what we're living in. Very much about Jesus Christ, too. In Matthew 28:18, I've been writing people, Matthew 28:18, it says, Jesus says, all power in heaven and earth, or all authority, has been given to me, says Jesus. The devil's not in control. I'm sorry, not unless you don't believe Jesus, and you can't get that wrong. So, Jonathan Cahn, when he was on a few weeks ago, nice fella, a real thing, I think. And he talked about the National Day of Prayer. He's going to be in Washington, D.C., along with many other preachers, many other people, in Washington, D.C. on the 26th Saturday. So listen, please start praying now and keep praying, because God is real. Jesus is real. Prayer works. It works. It's not corny. It's not stupid. It's not some fantasy thing. It's real. And don't be afraid. There's all these videos out there about it's going to be this and it's going to be that and the calendar's going to tear and it's going to be... Stop. Put on the full armor of God. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, and above all, spiritually. Fear not. That's said something like 360 times in the Bible. Angel comes to Mary. First time. What does he say? Don't be afraid. Fear not. That's a theme in the Bible. Don't be afraid. Don't fear. So don't fear. Be informed. Be prepared. And so this National Day of Prayer is happening the 26th of Saturday. And, Jonathan Cahn brought this up. And he talked about the 2 Chronicles 7:14, but also before, and all the things that you were that was giving you the sign to pray have all happened. Okay? Then it says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and heal their land. That's just the people that believe in God. That doesn't mean everybody has to do it. And there are millions of people who voted for God. And I'm sorry, you can just stack up and look at the Trump voters, and it's 65 million people? If the count's right. It's tens of millions of people. This isn't Sodom and Gomorrah. And so from now until the 26th and after, folks, my little turn of the cog, is to tell you to keep praying. To fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. That's where the praying comes in. Fear not, because God the Father, Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit are all firmly in control. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com.